Hi guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over how you might model some simple armor like this, using a combination of poly modeling and retopology techniques for the base, as well as some sculpting with the multi-resolution modifier and the sculpt mask for the accents and details. I'm going to be building off of the base mesh I blocked out and sculpted in a couple of my earlier videos, but feel free to follow along with your own character if you'd like as well. Okay, let's jump in. Okay, so I'm going to get started with modeling the base of the torso. Shift A and adding in a single vertex. This is available through the built-in Blender add-on, Extra Objects. Just enable it up in the Edit Preferences menu, up to the magnet icon here, then click on the drop-down menu and select Face. Untick Project onto Self, and tick Project Individual Elements. Now you'll see when you press G to move the vertex, it will snap to the closest face, in this case, the body. I'm going to loosely follow Danny Mac 3D's method of retopologizing a body for this part. I'll put a link below to his video. It is very helpful. So let's move the vertex to get started in the area around the nipple. Now over on the right, I'll add in a mirror modifier. Then add in a displacement modifier. To the Materials tab, I'm going to select one of the many materials I have already created in this file. But you can just click New if you haven't added any yet. Now you can scroll down to the viewport display area and change the color to something bright if you wanted to see things a little bit more clearly in the viewport. Just a personal preference of mine. Now let's start building the armor. E to extrude the vertex around the nipple. Extrude 8 vertices in a shape like this. Select the last 2 vertices and press F to connect them. Then E to extrude out again and create a second ring around the first. Then select 4 vertices, press F to make a face, switch to edge mode, select the edge on the end, and then you can press F all the way around and Blender will create quads for you automatically. Now if you tab into object mode, you can see the displacement modifier at work, as well as the viewport display color we changed earlier. It is sitting up a little too high from the body for me, so to fix this, you can reduce the strength slider under the displacement modifier and it will move closer to the body, as you can see. To have the displacement modifier visible while in edit mode, click on the cage and edit mode buttons here. Now when you tab into edit mode, you can see the armor mesh more clearly. Okay, so now let's create a more rectangular shape around the nipple like this. Then extrude a vertex out to the middle, and then face everything up. Control R to add a control loop for some more control over the shape. I'm going to click on this button here to activate the Poly Build tool. This allows you to move vertices without the need to press G each time. You can just click on it to move. It's a little faster and easier if you are moving a lot of vertices around like this. So here I'm covering the entire shape of the breast, adding in some control loops as I go to better match the shape. Now I'm going to select this top middle vertex and press X to delete. If you have the F2 add-on enabled in the Edit Preferences menu and you select an edge like this, you can Control plus right mouse button to create a quad quickly like this. Another handy feature of the F2 add-on is if you select a corner vertex like this and press F, it will automatically create a quad as well. When you hit a point where you want to connect things up, you can enable auto merge here in the top right. Now when you press F to make a quad and pull your vertex over to where you want to connect it, it will connect it up for you. Here you can see it doesn't merge automatically. If this happens, press N on your keyboard, go to Tool, Options, Auto Merge, and then increase the threshold distance. Now you'll notice when I move the vertex close to another, they automatically merge. Okay, moving down to the bottom of the breast. I'm going to select this edge and press E to extrude down. I'll do this twice to form 2 faces. And now I'm going to extrude a band of faces all the way around the back. Make sure to have clipping on in your mirror modifier so that the geometry does not overlap in the middle. Okay, here, make sure you have 8 faces around. Here I only have 7, as you can see in the bottom right corner, so I Control R to add in another one and then adjust things around to create even space. And now it's just a matter of creating the rest of the faces like this. Okay, now let's move further down the torso. I'm going to create 3 faces down like this. And then face up everything all the way around like before, trying to follow the edge flow of the sculpt. Okay, now let's create faces down the middle of the body and up around to the back. I'm going to extrude 2 vertices down like this, and then extrude a third to the middle center of the body like this. Then I'm going to extrude 2 vertices on the back side to match the ones I just made on the front, and then connect them up to the back. Now I'll make faces all the way down and around. It gets a little tricky in the bottom here. You can press the period key on your keyboard to focus the view on the vertex for better orbiting and zooming. Okay, now just connecting the faces up to the back. Now let's create some faces around the leg. Shift D to duplicate a vertex like this, and then move it down. Now I'm going to extrude 2 out towards the back to match the ones I already have. Now I'll extrude vertices around the thigh until I have 8 all the way around. Then create faces as before. Now, as you can see in the bottom right corner, I have 8 faces going around the thigh, and 8 faces going around the waist. Now I'm going to make 2 faces here like this. And then I'm going to create what's called a pole here by extruding out a vertex like this and then up and again like this. Then I'll create 2 faces here. So now you can see this vertex now has not 4 but 5 edges coming out of it, which is called a pole. Generally you want to keep these to a minimum as they can make deformations when animating less than ideal, but they do allow you to sort of turn your topology and they can be very helpful and often needed in certain parts of any topology. Selecting this vertex, extrude out and up like this, then create 2 faces like this. Then create the last face on the front and back to connect it all up. Now you should have 3 faces on the front between the waist and the thigh, and 3 faces on the back. Now it's just a matter of creating faces in the gap. Everything should hopefully match up so that you have nothing but quads. Here the auto merge just doesn't want to grab. You can also press the M key in version 2.9 for the merge menu and merge things manually if needed. I believe in previous versions it's Alt M. Here I find that I want some more geometry so that things aren't quite so low poly and jagged and better match the model, so I add some control loops and some more poly build tool to move vertices around a little faster. Now onto the base for the boots. Very similar to the torso, Shift D to duplicate a vertex, then I'm going to extrude 8 vertices around. You can press Alt B to set a view region to make orbiting around things like legs and hands a little easier. Now just making faces all the way around. If you find that you can't see geometry like this, it's likely because the normals of the new geometry are flipped. To fix this, just select everything and press Shift N to recalculate the normals. Now just more face creation round and round until you get to the ankle. Now onto the foot part of the boot. Let's create faces down the top like this, trying again to match the edge flow of the sculpt. Now I'm going to extrude 2 faces for the front of the toe. Now I'll extrude a face out the bottom edge like this, so that I can create a quad out the edge above and form a cap on the toe. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side to mirror it. Now I'm going to extrude faces towards the heel, matching each extrusion with the vertices already along the top. Once I hit the heel, I'm going to extrude from the back of the ankle down, making sure again to match each extrusion to the vertices already along the top of the foot. Now counting the faces on the left side of the foot to make sure I extrude the same amount on the right side. Now let's face everything up until I hit the ankle. Then I add in a control loop and then some poly build tool. And then let's start filling in the gaps by connecting things up. You can see here I need 2 vertices to match what I have running along the Achilles tendon. So I'll add those in with Control R, then face everything up. Then just some more poly build tool to space everything out a little bit better. Okay, now for the sole of the foot, working off the middle edge here, I'm going to select the 2 edges on either side of it, extruding out similar to what we did for the toe to create a quad on the sides, and then just extruding down, making sure to line up the vertices for the quad faces, then just face everything up in the gaps. Okay, so now if you wanted to give some volume to the armor to get a better idea of what it will look like in the final product, you can shade smooth up in the object menu, then over to the modifier panel and add in a solidify modifier. Now you can play with the thickness slider to get the look you want. You can also add in a subdivision surface modifier to make it a little bit smoother if you'd like as well. For the forearm braces, very similar to the torso and legs, Shift D to duplicate a vertex over, then extrude 8 vertices around, and then face everything up to the wrist. Okay, let's add in another layer to the armor to accent it a little bit. Here the torso, legs, and forearm armor are all technically one object, and I'd like them to be separate so I can edit them on their own. To separate, I press L to select all the linked vertices, and then P on the keyboard and select Selection. This separates whatever you have selected into its own object. Now switching to Face Select mode, I'm going to select some faces to create an accent on the armor. You can hold Control and left mouse button to pick the shortest path between 2 points. This helps speed up selecting large amounts of faces. So I'm going to select a bunch of faces in this configuration. Then I'll turn off Snap to Face, and I'll also turn off Auto Merge. Then Shift D to duplicate. Then I'll click over here to activate the Shrink Fatten tool and fatten up these new faces like this. Now we have a little bit of an accent piece on the armor. Similarly on the forearm, selecting faces, Shift D to duplicate, then scaling and moving to create another layer of armor. Now I'm going to separate these new accent pieces in the same way we separated before. P on the keyboard and then selecting Selection. Now just adjusting some of the thickness sliders on each of the new pieces. Okay, now to sculpt in some finer details, let's select the forearm piece here, and under the solidify modifier, let's select only rim. This makes the UV unwrapping process a little bit easier. Then click apply. Now tabbing into edit mode, I'm going to add in some control loops as I want to create a little bit of an indent. Here I want to move the loop closer to the bottom edge, so I'm going to press G twice for edge slide, then E, then F to align it to the bottom edge. Now selecting the faces in the middle, I to inset, then E to extrude inwards. Then S to scale them in a little bit as well. Now I want to sharpen up the edges a little bit here, so tabbing into edit mode, I'm going to Alt left click the edge here. press N on my keyboard, then Item, and then increase the mean bevel weight under the edge data section to 1. I'll do the same for the edge below as well. The edge should turn blue. Now adding in a bevel modifier over on the right, moving the bevel modifier above the subdivision surface modifier in the stack, changing the limit method to weight, and then playing with the amount sliders and segments to get the desired look. For better sculpting detail, I'm going to actually delete the subdivision surface modifier and add in a multi-resolution modifier. Then I'll click on the subdivide button 4 times. Now I can tab into sculpt mode, and pressing M on the keyboard for the sculpt mask tool, I'm going to draw in some simple designs like this. You can also hold Control to erase the sculpt mask if you want to change things up. Okay, so I'm happy with that design. I'm going to Control I to invert the mask, and then use the elastic deform brush to pull out the design a little bit, then Alt M to clear the sculpt mask. Now I'm using the crease brush and inverting it by holding Control to sharpen up the edges a little bit. Now adding details to the torso accent piece. It's very similar to the forearm, but you want to make sure that you apply the mirror modifier first here, then tick only rim on the solidify modifier and then apply it as well. Then you can select faces and extrude them in or out, whatever design you may want. As we did before as well, deleting the subdivision surface modifier and adding in a multi-resolution modifier. Clicking subdivide 3 or 4 times. Then painting in a design with the sculpt mask tool. Control I to invert it, and then the grab, deform, or even the move tool to extrude the design out a bit. Now onto the torso base piece. Let's add in some finer details, applying the mirror modifier and then ticking only rim on the solidify modifier and applying it. Here I'm selecting the faces around the bottom here and extruding them out like we did before. I'm selecting the top and bottom edges here, pressing N on my keyboard and increasing the mean bevel weight to 1, adding in a bevel modifier, moving it above the subdivision surface modifier, changing the limit method to weight, and playing with the amount and segment sliders to get the look I want. Now into sculpt mode, I'm going to use the crease brush to sculpt in some subtle folds and wrinkles as a final touch. To keep the length of this video down, I've left out the boots and shin guards as they involve the same steps as I covered for the forearms and torso. So there you have it, one way to model and sculpt some simple armor. In the next video, we will add in some accessories and weapons like a pouch, quiver, and bow. I have a little Facebook group going now where you can share your work and ask questions a little bit easier, or just hit me up on social media somewhere. I love seeing your guys' stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching guys, I hope it helped, and see you in the next one.